And I will say, I know more people will probably trickle in as we go, but let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our last Answers from an Actuary in 2024. This is super exciting. Oh, my screen is kind of putting away. Okay, I'll stop playing with my sweater. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited to introduce Derek Ray, who's going to be our speaker and question answerer for the day. I'm going to turn it over to Derek, let him introduce himself, and then we'll get started with the questions. Like I said, the question and answer box is on the bottom of your screen. You can go ahead and put your questions in there. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Derek Ray. I am a consulting actuary with Mercer. So I'm based in Dallas, Texas, home today. But yeah, been in the industry, to figure that out, 17 or so years. I've had several different stints, all within health, actuarial practice area. So maybe just kind of mention a little bit of that and why I took certain paths along the way. So started in health insurance with a smaller company called Health Markets. Was there for about 5 years. Thought it was pretty invaluable experience. As many insurance companies do, they had a rotation program, and so that helped a lot of us there as actual students try out different areas. So I worked some in pricing, product development, valuation reserving, did some Medicare Advantage. And so I think it's pretty helpful and useful to have a lot of those experiences, especially when you're younger in your career, and if you have a supporting employer to take those actuarial exams. That, in my mind, was just as equal as getting on the job experience, as having that support to kind of get through the actual exams. After a few years there, I moved on to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, larger than the first employer, and got some great experience there. Finished up my FSA exams and had great supporting leaders. Was there for about 4 or 5 years, and after that wanted to try out consulting, and so went to a consulting company who's now Willis Towers Watson. It was Towers Watson at the time. Um, wasn't there for too long. After that, I went to Aetna because I was wanting to try the insurance again, and then I went back to Blue Cross for about 5 years because I knew a lot of familiar faces. There was a really unique opportunity back at Blue Cross, and I always think highly of them, as many other companies I do as well. And then about 2 years ago, decided, try out consulting again. Wanted to get more strategic and thoughtful with clients and interact a lot more with clients, rather than kind of running some different reports, not always getting the same interaction that I enjoyed. And so, yeah, happy with Mercer. Again, been here about 2.5 years. I think with any role, it's important to know, you're never going to know it all. You just kind of always learn a little bit as you go, even if you're kind of older in your career. So, yeah, kind of how I got involved in this today was after I got my FSA. I didn't want the development to stop, and so wanted to continue giving back to the profession, maintain connections, which I've met a lot of people, and some who I interact with quite a bit now. Had some different volunteer experiences with the Society of Actuaries, some with sections, some with presenting, organizing conferences. So yeah, I will continue to volunteer with SOA and maybe move up to different roles, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, it's a little background. Happy to answer any questions about certain experiences, or if you have kind of general questions, exams, here to help any way I can. So.
Thank you so much. I know folks are coming in, and I know people can't see the chat after they come in, so I'm trying to put things in there as we go. Thank you so much for that introduction. Folks, like if you haven't heard yet, we're using the Q&A box on the bottom of the screen to go ahead and put your questions in there. Derek, you mentioned you're open to answering questions about exams. So one I like to start off with is, have you ever failed an exam?
I have, and I think it's rare for someone not to fail one, but I know a few people, sorry, and they were, you know, very studious. So I did fail one, and it was the very first one I took, which was exam P. I forget if it's still called that, but just the probability one. I was still in college at the time. It is a little challenging to have a full semester's load of college coursework and study for actual exam and kind of have a social life. So chalk it up to the combination of that. But I think I got a 4 on that one, and like that wasn't even a 5, which was close to the passing threshold. And for me personally, failure tends to motivate me. And so what I made sure was that I really gave it my full attention when I would go for the next actual exams. And so I think it was, I took kind of a break a little bit, like let me kind of go through the college coursework and get a lot of the fundamentals. And so it was maybe 2 years later where I attempted it again and really wanted to give it the due diligence and pass that one. And from then on, didn't fail another one. And some I got 6s on, but that's good enough. You move on. So did fail my first one, and then passed from there on 7 in a row. And so, part of it was got to find what motivates you, whether it's failing it, and then you have to redo the whole thing again and study again. That was a big for my motivation. And the other was, knowing wanted to start a family, which now I have 3 kids. And I wanted to really had it in my mind as a goal to kind of have my ASA by a certain age, have FSA by a certain age, and I admire those that can pass actual exams when they have kids, because you kind of split all over the place, and then you have work too. But I, I wanted to, finish my exams before we had kids, and so fortunate to be able to do that. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that, especially talking about the gap in between exams that you took. It's
Mhm.
really cool to hear about folks persevering, because that's a big part of the exam pathway is persevering, especially, fall, pick yourself back up. Can you share any study tips that really helped you in that process of obviously studying for the exams?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I think for those of you going through actual exams, hopefully there's good support. Well, I can't say everyone has, but if many are with an employer that, and most do, but not all, most will kind of support your exam process. I'd say maximize, the resources they're giving you, whether that's time off, study time, paying for materials, they pay for seminars, kind of maximize, even if you don't feel like you quite need it, if you've mastered it, like, well, it's still, a benefit and a perk. So I'd say go ahead and maximize it, because, if you fail it, then you look back and say, well, I should have done that. So I'd say maximize your resources there. Of course, if you don't have support like that, then, uh, talk with your employer, or if you're a student in college, then certainly, kind of do what you can with the resources that you have. In terms of kind of studying for exams, what I found worked best is if, say, you've got a big study manual and textbooks. I think the study manuals really condense a lot of the syllabus down into bite-sized chunks. Say it's 1,000-page study manual. Over time, you're naturally going to grasp certain things a lot quicker than others. And so I'd say, much as you get those areas that you understand stronger, move on to the stuff that you don't grasp as quickly. And what I kind of started to do was say there's, break it into chunks, 1,000 pages. If there was like 500 pages of study manual material that I felt good about, put that on the back burner for a while, go to the other 500 pages, so down to like 50%. All right, now I've got half of that. All right, now really start to focus on the final 25% that I'm struggling with. It can feel, what's the word? Discouraging, I guess. If you've like, well, now I'm only looking at study material where I'm always struggling and I'm not getting it, but like it will help you in the end, or at least it helped me to continue to know the strong material. Don't ever like just forget about it, but really, that window or the area of material that you're less familiar with, just keep refining it and narrowing it down. And eventually you'll get to the point where like, like 90% of the material really well because you kind of condense it. And then towards the final 2 weeks of exams, I would just like continue to do different practice exams and surprise myself by like just flipping to a random part in the study manual, because that's kind of what it's going to be like on exams. Like you don't know what's around the corner, what's the next question. So, mimic the atmosphere of that as much as possible and just like, all right, go flip to this page, do that one. All right, I got that. Now flip to another random page. And you'll start to see the areas that you know really well. And for those you're still struggling with, just study and hone in on those the last couple of weeks. So.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That is all super helpful information. I'm trying to pull the resources you're talking about, like the practice exams. The SOA
Mm-hmm.
just changed our website like 3 weeks ago, so I'm still trying to navigate it. So those links are forthcoming, everyone. I just got to find them on the website first. Okay, so we have a question from someone. So they recently sat for FM, but they did not meet the passing criteria. The feedback that they received was the feedback I received indicated that my performance level was high. I don't know, Derek, if you have any experience grading or anything like that, but could you clarify what that means, or do you understand how to give feedback on if your performance level was high, but they still didn't make the passing mark of the exam?
I'll give best comments I can. So whenever I was going through all the exams, we never got any feedback. So if you get a 5, there you go. If you get a 6, there you go. You don't. When I was going through them, we got 0 feedback. So at least some improvement, and I'm glad to see that. Clearly, if you didn't pass, but the performance level was high, and I probably got a score along with it. My guess is maybe a 5 or a strong 4. If there's an opportunity, and then sorry to the second part, I have not been a part of the grading committees, so I'm less familiar with that. But the way I would go about that is if you are allowed to ask for additional feedback, clearly do that and see if there are areas. Um, if not, the best that you can remember, I think there's like forums online, and maybe it's changed a while, but often, and I think this goes along with, in general career advice, often we kind of know the areas where we're weaker and where we're stronger. And so, just being honest with yourself and performance, and no shame and not passing it. I know you'll get it soon, and hopefully this next time. But if you were to kind of give yourself another practice exam, as much as possible, hopefully you kind of have an inkling of some of the questions that didn't go as well. If not, I bet, if you kind of go through the study manual again, and as proud as we can often be, I'm like, yeah, I think I know that. Like, just be really honest. Like, if you don't feel like you knew it or nailed it, then that's probably one of the areas, even if it was a little curveball corner of the textbook question, those can affect it. So
Thank you so much. So you mentioned some of those online forums and things like that. So there isn't anything that the SOA offers. So could you talk a bit about, how you found those study groups or how you found the folks to connect with, both before you were working and taking exams and then after you were working and taking exams as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know if it's still out there because I haven't gone to check. There's actualoutpost.com was one for a long time. And I guess that's, a little different when they were kind of paper exams where everyone kind of gets the same question, maybe in a different order versus computer based. So I know there's a different, but I think, and there's probably a theme of people getting similar questions on everyone taking the same exam. Um, I would, you know, couple things, if you're working at an employer, talk and hope if there's other students taking exams with you, get their opinion. Hopefully there's some people, that have just taken those exams that kind of know good resources. If you don't, I'd say, if you're maybe in school or college, university, hopefully your professors can point you to some good resources that it's not like call it grassroots, but just not SOA approved, um, but not discouraged as well. I think just it's a good community to find out good tips out there. And then, if you're not on LinkedIn, get on there. There's a lot of people that are willing to help that are much closer to the exam world, including those that give seminars, those that write textbooks. For example, see who wrote your study manual. Um, or textbook, but probably study manual is a good way to go and ask that author. Like I think most people that are willing to go through the effort of writing study manuals are in it to help you all and us in the community. So don't be afraid. Ask them the question that you just asked me. How would you go about this scenario? And it won't take them long. And ask multiple people because I always think getting a lot of perspectives is helpful, and you'll start to see a theme of certain ways to go about it.
Thank you so much for that answer. And thank you for mentioning LinkedIn as well. I think that's a super important tool. I'm not signing you up to say that you'll connect with people on LinkedIn, but if you are open to that, definitely you can say that. I know folks connect with me on LinkedIn as well, but I'm not an actuary if you didn't know. So I can only point you in certain directions. I can't help with those math questions. The other thing I wanted to talk about or promote is the affiliate membership, but specifically the MentorLink program as part of the free affiliate membership. Derek, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. It's been around for just over 3 years now, but it's a free program that we offer to our candidates. The MentorLink program is super cool. You can actually go on, you can say, I live in Dallas. I'm looking for someone in actuarial consulting, and I would like to talk to a man. Boop. If Derek was a mentor, he might pop up on that list. So those are folks, those are actuaries who have opted into being asked these questions. So that's a really great tool if you feel intimidated making that first reach out on LinkedIn or trying to make that first connection. I highly recommend doing that. And I will drop that link again in 1 second. Okay, we've got a couple questions. This one is related right to what we were just talking about. Which study manual would you recommend for preparing for the initial exam? So exam PNFM.
Yeah, assuming they're still around, and I apologize, because it's been a while since I took the exams, but uh, GRASP was the one. I think that has an acronym maybe, but if not, GRASP is the one that I would often use, and I think there's another one called MATE, and I'm sure plenty others, but I felt like the GRASP study manual is really like boiled down the key information. Um, what I would also say is, and kind of goes back to my first comment, like study manuals, of course, that's like, here's your outline, pretty much everything that you'll want to know to help yourself succeed for the exams ought to be in there. And then the flashcards, there's one thought of using the same vendor for both study manual and flashcards and webinar or seminars if they have them. There's also another thought, and there's no right answer. You could use a different vendor for one or the other. Again, I think it helps provide more of a well-rounded exposure, because one author might word it differently than another author. And if you see them word it differently, then you can kind of make up in your mind and synthesize that, like, all right, I kind of get it. How you would word something or go about a certain problem. I think most of the formula-based stuff is pretty consistent, but that was a long answer for which study manual. But I use Grasp, and I think most out there are pretty good.
First, want to apologize. My washing machine is going wild in the back. If you can hear it, anyone, sorry. But second of all, thank you so much for that advice. I have not heard the using different materials from different vendors before. I'm going to take that with me when folks ask me that question, because that is super helpful, especially in for the like you said, our concept-based exams where things might be worded because 20 different people are writing questions for the same exam. Thank you so much. That was helpful. Okay, so I have a couple questions from the same person, and this person is currently pursuing their master's in actuarial science. They're passionate about building a career in the field. However, they're looking to supplement their grad work with a current job. So, are there any potential career paths or industries that align with actuarial skill development? I also want to suggest maybe an actuarial analyst job as well, but are there any things that you think might complement that master's degree as they're working through it?
Yeah, good question. You know, if I kind of repeat it, other maybe non-actuarial roles now that may help complement an actual role in the future. There's starting to be some good overlap with data science. First, I'll say I don't think there's a wrong answer. If you think something might be a good fit, then it probably is. And a tangent on that is usually a lot of times something that you're passionate about, you'll do very well in, and then you'll be more passionate about it, you'll do better. So I think number one is, are there things that interest you that you think kind of have a, I don't know, a Venn diagram or kind of can complement as well? So without knowing if you're kind of interested in health or pension or life or property casualty, certainly you'd probably want to get one of those. If you're kind of interested in health, for instance, then there are a lot of roles out there that use data science or computer science, or kind of a basic learner starter type role for insurance. um you know it's I think tough because it's a little open ended, but I would I'd say go with what you like as a starter, because then you'll probably be more passionate about it. But probably can't go today without saying artificial intelligence. So that's a big buzz in the industry and so on. There's I think that's still being worked on, but if that's still a lot of uniqueness around artificial intelligence, if that's something that you'd like to learn more about, I know there's a lot of experts out there that can help guide. Um, but yeah, I don't have like a great clear answer. I think just what you like, what do you think would complement, and use some of those like computer skills to build those now.
Thank you. And that was a great answer, especially for not necessarily knowing how to frame it. So thank you so much for that. And then building off of what you just said about those programming skills. So I'm going to broaden the question a bit. What are some folks who are just taking their first two exams? What are some of the programming skills they should focus on? And then folks also later in their exam pathway, are there any things that they should focus on later on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll write that down because kind of two-part. So I'd say now just familiarize yourself a lot with Excel. I don't know any actuary that whose primary tool, of course, there's exceptions, but I don't know many whose primary tool is not Excel. Like there's a lot of programming that can be done in the background. And I've dealt with some of the SQL programs and a little bit of the VBA. I never did Python or R, which a lot of those are kind of tools that help get you the data that you need. But a lot of times the final output, whether it's to your boss or to a client or anybody, a lot of the final, if not complete work, a lot of the final work is often done in Excel. And then you have to make sure you understand what it's doing, why it's working that way. But Excel, there's a lot of like skills and courses out there that can teach you kind of level one, level two, level three. Um, I, depending on your role and if you are, with an employer, um, asking others what is the most important tools for your job, most would probably start with Excel. And then if you're kind of in an insurance company, it could be some of that SQL querying language. Get familiar with that, um, and try to get uncomfortable, do things, test it out. That I'd say is a lot more important. And then kind of as you go later into your career, like these days, I kind of only do Excel work, but I also do a lot of like PowerPoint building to give presentations to clients. Not like you, if you're younger in your career, you have to master that, but at least get familiar with it so that you know how to communicate results in a concise way. Uh, Afterthought, follow-up thought to that is a lot of times us as actuaries, like we love all the numbers and like look at this table and look at these graphs. And I've been guilty of it, so have others. Um, but if you can't communicate what you're doing to say um, your boss or three bosses higher than you who's not technical, doesn't need all the detail, unless they ask for it, then you can back it up. But um, give the final end product something that's easy to understand, digestible. I'm not saying you can't use charts or graphs, but there's no need to do like these a blast of graphs and like all this verbiage of exactly what you did. Like give an executive summary. If someone wants more detail, you can back it up. But all that to say, be able to communicate, written and verbal, because I think that's some of the areas that have carried me farther in my career than maybe others is like, um, I know I don't know everything, but if you can present most of what this work represents, and if someone has a question, well, what, the data science, what's this behind that? Like you can always do a follow-up, but I think communication is what ought to be focused on a lot later in your career, whereas earlier, building on those technical skills, like understanding the foundations of it is pretty important. But always working on different skills as you grow in your career.
Thank you. And you must have read my mind because I was just about to ask you about communication skills. So thank you so much. Very succinct answer. That was the perfect answer that I was looking for myself. I also want to add, I know I keep talking about the affiliate membership, and I'm sure a lot of you are already affiliate members, but we do have a lot of e-learning courses, including 2 on Excel. So we have an Excel Basics and an Excel Advanced, I suppose it's called. So I would definitely recommend checking those out if you're interested in building some of those technical skills. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a bit. And I'm talking about you. So, Derek, this person wants to know what you do as a consulting actuary and what kind of projects consulting actuaries work on in real life.
Yeah, good question. So I'll contrast, my experiences with insurance and consulting a little bit. Um, Consulting in general, you work a lot more with clients day to day, whether that's verbal or meetings or presentations or however you interact with them. versus working in insurance companies, which there are still roles within insurance where you work with clients. And when I say clients, like outside companies who are hiring you to do work, whether that's health or pension. But I I'll maybe give some examples of what I'm working on this week as consulting actuary. There's a lot of deliverables that we in consulting firms provide to our clients who are paying us for unbiased opinions to make sure that the vendors that they have hired, whether it's the health insurance company or stop loss or if it's pension, the retirees, it's our job as consultants to ensure that the client's money is being managed efficiently, that they're getting uh, as good of a deal as possible, and to be able to explain why their budget is doing certain things, whether it's up or down, and really kind of help project forward-looking costs for them for the near or long-term future. So particularly this week, we're getting towards the end of December. As usual, we have a lot of monthly deliverables, and so we're doing those. We can kind of give monthly reports. Here's how your monthly, statements are looking, and sure they can get some of this in part from their insurance companies or vendors, but often that's like one piece, and it's our job to kind of piece all of their programs together, give them a total budget. Are things looking unfavorable or favorable? And if so, why? Is it close to budget? Because it's up to the clients. And often it's a HR business partner we're working with at the client, but then they have to take what we provide, which again kind of goes back to the communication. It's got to be something that is digestible, not a lot of detail unless someone really asks for it, but enough to give a full picture of a budget or statement. We would provide that to our client, who often then develops their own presentation to their senior leaders at the company, whether it's their CFO or CEO or CHRO in HR. Um, we are looking out for our client as consultants to give them information that they need. And so currently this month, there's a lot of, final year-end deliverables happening. For some of you familiar with reserving or valuation, like how does their reserve look for the end of the year? Because that has to go on their accounting cash flow statements. And final renewals, which a unique part of consulting that we are not often taught as actuaries is negotiation. So one topic that I've been working on in the last 2 weeks was around stop loss, which it's a lot of clients will like fund their claims up to a certain point, but if one of their employees who has medical coverage exceeds 200,000 or 300,000, they can choose what level they want, and there's kind of guidance based on how big they are. But if a certain person costs more than X amount in health claims, then they fall into the stop loss. And so it's kind of catastrophic coverage. You could think of it as like home insurance as well. Like if something goes wrong with your home, you're going to kind of have to pay for it, unless like a house fire, then your insurance company comes in and it covers the catastrophic. But some team member had asked me to kind of look at this negotiation. The stop loss carrier is saying it's going to cost this for coverage next month. Is there any way to reduce that? I go, well, I look at this 10-page renewal document they give us. It's my job to kind of look through the numbers. Do I think they calculated that fairly and reasonably? In my opinion, I think they did. I don't think they're trying to jack up the rate too much. But I think there was one area that maybe you could have weighted some of the experience differently. And that would result in, a 10% lower renewal. So that was unique for me because I'm not often asked to negotiate down. or negotiate much at all. But I think that's another skill to kind of learn over time. Be fair, you're not just trying to say, hey, give me a lower price, but hey, I noticed you were calculating it this way. In my experience, sometimes we calculate it differently. In that case, it would be lower. And then hop on a call and be open. And if there's good reasons for that, then let it be. And so tomorrow I have a call with the client to go through that and say, yeah, looks like they calculated this reasonably. Also, they have some margin in there, as we heard you as the client would like to have. And if assuming that's still the case, we recommend just go with this. But if you really want to be aggressive, we can go back one more time and try to lower it to get a lower cost for you this coming year. But it's just unique things. As consultants, we are hired to advocate for the client, and make sure that they are getting the best deal possible. So
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate how you're tying in these other skills that, again, I wouldn't think that actuaries need to negotiate about different things. I think about negotiating in like salary negotiation. So that was a new perspective for me as well. So thank you so much. I think that how you're sharing this information is super helpful for everyone here because, again, these are connections I've not made in my head, and I've been working at the SOA for over 2.5 years. So I really appreciate you breaking down some of this technical stuff and making it more easily digestible for some of us who are not FSAs. So thank you so much. Okay, so folks, I only have one question left. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and get those in the Q&A box. So this question is pursuing an actuarial career worth it, considering how many exams are required? Would it be better to invest the same amount of time into becoming a data analyst or a data scientist instead? And even though I'm here as the SOA, please answer this honestly. Don't think about it affecting your SOA membership at all.
well, me personally, I think it's 100% worth it. I maybe I'm biased because this is my career and I'm really like feel passionate about it. I'll say when I was going to college and even the first few years, it's I didn't know what I wanted to do, but my dad was an actuary in pension, so I knew of it and a little bit about it. But he would always kind of subtly tell me that, did Derek, the actuary was ranked like number 2 again in the Jobs Almanac this year, and then it'd be number 1 year, and then number 2 again, and so he'd just kind of subtly tell me that stuff in high school. I'm like, all right, well, sure, Dad, but then in college you start to see the courses that you like. I mean, some you have to take, and some you get to choose. And so then you kind of start to see what you're good at and what you like. And that's kind of how I got into it. I think I would, of course, I haven't had a different career, but I would agree. I think this actuarial career is very rewarding because, math, a lot of us like math. If you're on this call, you probably like math. Two, being able to use it in a business environment was always more fascinating to me than, say, just teaching math. Nothing against that, but for me, I wanted to do a little bit more hands-on practical stuff, understand how businesses work, what do they do with accounting and finance. So there's a lot of things you can do with math, but for me, this fit all those, this checked the box. And then I think especially what I'd say has been rewarding, and thanks to the entire like actuarial industry and community, is a lot of times, sometimes I'll go to a meeting where we got everyone go around the table, and this has happened throughout my career, and be like, oh, so and so, there's a salesperson, and so is in marketing, and then here's the client, and someone's in care management, and then they'll kind of get to me, and it's like, well, I'm an actuary, I've done this and that, and there's a lot of instant credibility that comes with it, especially after you've passed exams. A lot of that is due to the ethics and the reputation that has been built for actuaries through everyone, and it's a whole community effort. But um, knowing that our industry is held to high professional standards brings a lot of that credibility. And so even just by being an actuary, there's a lot of just credibility that comes with that. So much so that someone will ask a question and someone will chime in. They go, "Well, I want to hear what the actuary has to say about that." All right, well, I got to toe the line of, help making sure I'm saying the company support line, but also being objective about it. So there's that. It's a strong community. So that's why I continue to volunteer, is just people are passionate about giving back. And that's why I continue to give back, because it's been a great career so far for me. I've had a lot of actuarial leaders that have cared about my career. And so then when I become a manager and leader, it feels natural to me to kind of give back, help the next one in line. We were all in that situation at some point and all have questions. And so that's why I kind of doing this today. I want to kind of give back and make sure that we can help the next generation as others have, helped me. But yeah, short answer, yes. The exams can be daunting, but one step at a time. Just kind of have short-term goals and long-term goals, and it's okay if you slip on one or two, but don't give up is what I would say, and let, if there's some failures, let that motivate you going forward.
Thank you so much. That was, again, a perfect answer to that question. And again, I'm not just saying that because I work at the SOA. All right, so this next question is from Jose. Jose has a BA in data science from an Ivy. He took a lot of 30 credits of stats and some quant finance classes. Is this a good background for an actuary, or do you think that he'll spend too much time preparing for the tests?
Yeah, interestingly, I know a lot of FSAs that got their degree in something random. Like the first person I managed several years ago, and he's a good friend of mine now, and we don't work at the same company anymore, but he has his FSA now. Like, he got his degree in microbiology. And when we were interviewing him, like, well, microbiology, but you want to be actuary? He's like, yeah, when I was in college, I found it interesting. And by the time I was like a senior, I heard about actuary, thought it was interesting, but I just want to go ahead and finish the degree and then do a lot of work. So I'd say, um, you know, any probably degree that um, certainly within a bachelor's of science area is a well fit, like bachelor's of arts maybe, but probably not a lot of scientific classes that you took. But yeah, I'd say definitely for stats or finance majors or any type of kind of numerical science, or even the guy I just mentioned, microbiology, like scientific mind and critical thinking skills, I think are what set apart a lot of those that pass actual exams versus others. Again, I've seen psychology majors that have come over and passed exams. So short answer is yes, and further, I'd say if you have a lot of stats courses and classwork, then probably some of the exams will come pretty naturally and easy for you. Some will be newer material, but if you kind of get to the third or fourth exam, it might have different probability or annuity or whatever the topic is, but just consider it like another course, and you'll learn it and figure it out and pass the exam on that you need to.
Thank you. And thank you for those examples of folks who come from different backgrounds. I know an actuary who's a musical theater major, so it's possible if you have that strong study on your own ethic, you can study
Yep.
whatever you want to in college and still become an actuary. All right, Derek, I don't see any other questions. Let's wait like 30 more seconds. Is there anything you were expecting to be asked about that you weren't, or anything that you would like to share as we close out?
Um, Yeah, if there's any other questions, thanks for having me. Um, I wrote down a couple notes. I'm just seeing, you know, it's kind of top of mind because someone asked me to answer a hypothetical question that, so I'm part of now the Leadership and Development Council, which within the SOA, there's different councils of volunteers that get elected to positions. So I just recently got elected to this one. Uh, and in doing so, one of the council members says, "Hey, we also always do this hypothetical question of, so and so is in a tricky situation. Here's their scenario. What would you do?" And I guess I was given the honor to answer this hypothetical question. And so he sent me an email last week. So I'll maybe repeat that because I think it's a good answer, or sorry, question or thought. But it was, you know, someone a few years into their career, they really like the pricing role that they're in. And all of a sudden there's a corporate reorganization, and this person gets abruptly moved to a different area where she doesn't have any experience, unfamiliar with it. She doesn't know if she'll like the role. And her boss just did that. She's kind of resentful to her boss about it, but she's in a geographic area that she doesn't want to leave, and married, and the spouse has a great job. So what would you do? And I sent him my response today, like, whether it's a rotation into a new position that you sought out or you didn't, I'd say give it a, ideally a year, at least 6 months. If you hate it, then still give it 6 months, but at least give it time to see, really get the understanding and foundations of a new role. If you like it, and if you don't, you'll know that in your career, which will hopefully be a long career, that you tried it out, some of the foundations of it, but you don't want to do that. So for me, that was valuation and reserving. And I think that's a very important thing to do, but it just didn't excite me a lot. But at the same time, I think every actuary should know how to do it, what are different methods for valuation and how to present it. Because I still will review different reserving estimates that have to go to clients. So I think having that, 1 or 2 years of experience that I had early in my career, where I got rotated to the team, I didn't want to do it, but now I'm glad I did because I have some of that experience. I think the more areas you can test out within the first 5 to 10 years of your career in different areas, even if you really like what you're doing, it's going to be better for your career to just try out different areas, at least for 6 months or a year. So that's kind of what I responded in that hypothetical scenario, was give it time, but also say, hey, boss, like, I didn't really want this, but I'm going to give it my best. Would love your support as I go through this because I don't know the area. And also let's talk about, my long-term path at this company. And so I think that kind of works well for many reasons. So, give things time, even if you don't like the role, try it out, and give it your best.
Thank you. And that is applicable to jobs outside of the actuarial field as well. So even if everyone on this call, or if you don't end up being an actuary, that is just great life advice in general.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more question. I'm happy to answer it if you don't want to, but what's the difference between the CAS and the SOA?
Yeah. The primary difference is what areas each practice and kind of specialize in. And so the Society of Actuaries often has us as specialists in the health industry, life, pension. I think those are the three main ones. And then there's a lot that are non-traditional, like some are entrepreneurial or professors that are education, that they'll still be part of the SOA. So, but I think the three primary ones of health, life, and pension, which is retirement. On the CAS, Casualty Actuary Society, a lot of them are property and casualty. So property, if you think of home insurance or car insurance, a lot of more like kind of tangible items sometimes that need pricing. Um, whether you want to go to one or the other, you have to figure that out. I'll say if I wasn't in health, which I continue to like, and that's all I've done, and I'll continue it. And there's a lot of sub health industries. I would find, weather prediction and catastrophic weather events pretty interesting. And so that type of stuff, like property casualty, might be a little more well suited in the CAS, but I don't think it's and also say there are actuaries I know that have both credentials from
Mhm.
both of them, which like kudos to you if you want to take more exams, but I've done. If you had anything to add.
Yeah, that's super helpful the way that I explain it, because I'm talking typically to college students who ask if you like working on long-term problems, go SOA. If you like working on short-term problems, go CAS. Again, that's a very generalized answer, but as a non-math person, that's how I explain it. All right, Derek, thank you so much. We are just about at time. We're finishing a little bit early. That is okay though. Thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful. I know we got a lot of questions. Someone already asked if this will be available to watch later, which yes, it will be. Thank you so much. And
Great.
I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Of
All right.
course.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.